It's the idea of striving to be pure. It's the idea of being righteous. You know, doing your best all the time, right? Striving perfect, knowing you can't achieve it. See, it's delusional. It's wrong. And this is why I say it's the difference between being of godhood and godliness, right? Thinking that we can be God and being delusional that we can be perfect, and we can actually be the best, uh, but uh, rather than knowing there's no way we can ever be perfect, but it's the struggle that we endure is the struggle of trying to be perfect, trying to be pure, trying to be at our best, right? That should be the struggle. And the more you struggle to do that, and the more you try to do that, the more you're going to struggle. Because the less satisfied you are, that you're not satisfied. You're never satisfied. If you're satisfied, then you're not going to push forward. If I'm satisfied with what I did right now, hey, this is why I mentioned before the idea of maximizing human potential. What's human potential? What is the potential? It's up to the person. If it's up to you, you could always say, hey, you know what? You could stop at any time, say, hey, I reached my potential.
We go to the struggle to better ourselves, not for ourselves necessarily. It's when we realize it's for others. And I think that your student who was jumping over you, it's like when he became selfless is actually when he was able to accomplish the feat. When he was thinking selfishly about himself
That's right.
is actually when he actually was doing a disservice to others.
That's right.
And so I think the message comes home there is like when we take the kind of like the focus off of ourselves,
That's right.
our potential increases, what we can do increases.
That's right. That's right. And that that at the very end, right, is what defines actually, good leaders and bad leaders.
Well, hello, welcome to this edition of Live by the Sword with Grandmaster Taejoon Lee, and my name is Ferny Ceballos. I'm your host, moderator, and just doing what I can to just have an incredible and lively discussion with Grandmaster Lee. Grandmaster Lee, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Hi, Fernie.
How you doing? All right, I'm
Good.
good. Last time we discussed we had a conversation around your article, to lead or not to lead. And we wanted to continue the conversation around leadership and actually get into some of the specifics of the article, because I think it's important to highlight some of the key points that you make inside the article. Is there anything you wanted to share before we get going, or I can just
No,
dive
no,
in
I'm
myself?
no, but what I notice all the time, after the podcast, and then I look at it, and then there's a lot of things that I should have said and could have said better, and so forth. So hopefully in this session, I could add to it and make it more enlightening for our viewers. Hopefully.
Well, definitely, sir. Well, let's just hop in. There's some key quotes within the article, to lead and not to lead, which people will be able to read on their own, that I wanted to highlight and discuss. The first one is, you start off with saying the advancements in technology from the use of stronger, more resilient materials, creating improved tools and mechanisms which increase the comforts of living, resulting in the enhancement of delusions of power, has inversely affected human beings by increasing their arrogance and pride, yet decreasing their fortitude, tenacity, and humility. Thus, human beings, we have started from iron and have now regressed to be of stone or lesser.
Yeah.
Can you comment on that? What do you mean by that
Yeah.
exactly?
I mean, there's lots of things to unpack there. But remember, I started out by saying, our technology, we've grown as a civilization, right? From the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, and then the Iron Age overcoming the Bronze Age, and so forth. And in order to use the harder um, more resilient sources of raw resources, we needed more more advanced technology in order to wield those raw resources. So as we're doing that, and as technology evolved, what's happened? What I equate that with also in the article is that it should be in the same way how we uh, should or are able to create stronger leaders or better leaders, is that you have to go ahead then have start with stronger raw resources. So for human beings uh, to be of iron, I state that in order to become that strong or resilient, is that you have to endure greater hardship, suffering, and challenges in your life, and those are the things that harden us in order to make us more strong.
Hmm.
However, as we've been able to increase our technology and our comforts of living have increased, it's affected us as human beings in the opposite, in the inverse. It had the inverse effect. So as our technology grew greater, our source, uh, our raw resources, and what we use becomes stronger. We, as human beings, individuals, have become weaker, have become softer,
Mm.
and so we have lost the resilience, tenacity, strength, conviction, stick to itiveness, all those things that a person needs uh, in order to overcome greater hardships and difficulties. Um, so, uh, and the other thing that it does as humanity, um, we pat ourselves on the back. We did a great job, even though you probably aren't the one who invented the technology. You're part of the human race, and you credit, our human advancement, how great we are, and it brings about greater sense of heightened, uh, self, the pride, arrogance, right? That our human beings were so much better now.
They just think we're
Um,
more powerful than we really are.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it creates more delusions that we're greater, uh, which then develops greater apathy or the desire to wanting to achieve and do even more.
Hmm.
And so we become more complacent and more self entitled. I think that's the word, entitlement, definitely. Um, and that we deserve better. So in the um, so one of the things that I discussed last time, which I find it very challenging these days, and as a result of that, what I see in the people, in the students, as I said, I've been teaching a long time now, right? Over 4 decades, a long time. Okay. If you ever worked at anything 4 decades, you should retire. All right. I'm past retirement. Um, and I know that this was a problem before, but it's not getting better. And that's students are not able to take um, criticism. Um, and they don't deal with it well, and they don't deal with difficulties and hardships. So I mean, so they respond in one of two ways. One, they'll blame. They'll blame something else, make excuses, whatever it may be. Another person, their job, their family. They'll blame something. They'll make some excuses. The other, though, what I'm seeing more and more of is this self pity. feeling sorry for themselves, where because you said something to them, they start to think, I can't do it. I'm not able to do it. Maybe this isn't for me. Uh, you know, maybe I wasn't born to do warangdo. Maybe this is not my life calling. Maybe I'm not made to be a martial artist, or whatever. I'm not made to be an instructor or a teacher. I'm not a leader. Uh, uh, they have this pity, that, and they say, oh, I can't do anything. I'm not, I'm horrible. And that, that's very hard to deal with. And so I'm constantly, reprimanding or disciplining. Then at the same time, I'm constantly, reinforcing that some positive uh, affirmations to help their self-esteem. I mean, um yeah, so
Mhm.
it's it's very hard. It's very hard, and first, of course, I tell them, I mean, because the thinking is not there. um if, like, for instance, I have some instructors, right? They just started teaching, and and um when I see the results of the instruction, I see it during bell testing when the students test, and I see the result of what they do, right, through their students. And when they don't do well, or by seeing the students, I know exactly what the issues with the instruction is. So they get reprimanded for those things. But then, they will get very upset and down on themselves, and say things like, uh, you know, I uh, I don't feel good. I'm doubting what I'm doing. You know, I don't know if I'm made to be a teacher. This kind of thing. And but see, this is what's, to me, um, not rational at all. How can they, in matter of 3-4 years, right, of teaching or doing something, that they expect themselves to be uh, that great at it, so that first, that self expectation that, yeah, I can do great, make no mistakes, and I'll do a great job. uh that's a lie. That's a delusion. It should be taken, yeah, I'm trying, I'm doing, and I don't know exactly what I'm doing. So the attention and focus should be, I'm going to pay attention more, learn more, and I'm going to improve. So they should invite criticism and invite correction, because that's an opportunity for them to get better. But when you give those corrections, and when you point out the faults, they get distraught, depressed, you know, suicidal. I don't know. They completely break down. And this is just for everybody. One of the other things that students do all the time is, they get into it, right? They start enjoying what they're doing, and they start to put more time and effort, into it. They help out more. They get more responsibility, etc., etc. All these things are told from the very beginning that it's not going to be easy. It's going to be more difficult. And of course, they take the challenge. And then after they take the challenge, and then they get reprimanded for mistakes that they made, because there's no way, okay, there's no way, if they know all the things that I know, 40 years, over 40 years of teaching, then I mean, then I definitely need to retire. I need to change my job, because I don't know crap,
So
you know
what I'm hearing, sir, is it seems like, today, especially the younger generation, they're accustomed to being they're accustomed to the positive reinforcement. They're accustomed to being told they're great or good job, whatever. They're not accustomed to the opposite as well. They're not accustomed to the criticism. And for me, that kind of signals that whatever somebody tells me I am is must be true, because if all my life or my upbringing people have been telling me good things, but then all of a sudden those things are not positive anymore, then those must be true. It's like the absence of an independent mind to evaluate themselves, as opposed to just take the criticism as meaning they're not worthy, as opposed to going, ah, this is something I need to improve on.
Yeah, yeah, and this is what I'm I come down to why I use the terms of these of stone, bronze, and iron. You know, the reason why iron has so much value is that it's able to, break bronze. You know, so it's actually because it's about warfare, right? It's actually about swordsmanship, of weaponry. Fighting with clubs and stones, and then with Bronze Age came the sword, and then the Iron Age, the iron sword, and there's no way that in fighting then the bronze sword would break, so they get destroyed, right? So what is then the value of that material? It's what? It's resilience,
Mhm.
right? It's so that it doesn't break. It's hard to break, but yet it's hard to wield, hard to mold, hard to mend, hard to use. Uh, so it requires more energy to create and make something usable with it. But once you do, it's strong, you know. And then, right, and then this was also in the Iron Age, what also needed, right? And this is where the samurai, the Japanese swordsmanship, truly excelled, and that's what also brought the samurai and the Japanese to great power, right? What is that? It's the samurai sword. It was wielded, it was forged in a way. See, because if it's too hard, then when it strikes, it's brittle. It's like glass, and it shatters. If it's too soft, then it bends, and then it's unusable. So they had to make it not too hard on the edge, but in the main core, to be able to have it so it's also flexible, so it doesn't break, or but not too flexible that it bends. And they mastered that, right? Um, that's the entire idea. And when I talk about human personality, the human being, it has to be forged in the same way, right? So it can't be just done with hard. When I say through struggle, through hardship, and all that is, uh, yes, because you need, in order to wield uh, a stronger raw material, you need more energy and you need more intensity, right? But at the same time, it requires uh, uh, what is it? Intricacy. It requires attention to detail. It requires minute uh, changes that could that then that would be in the sense of developing human character. With the ideas of compassion, of not only fortitude, but temperance, tolerance, patience. All these things has to be taught together.
Mhm.
And I just, and what also, it comes to, see, so the people itself are soft. They're just soft. And we have, I mentioned last time, right? I mean, the idea of zero tolerance, idea of not dealing with conflict, idea of that within our society we're trying to eliminate any types of conflict, and somehow that we think we're going to go ahead and make people um, happier by getting rid of greater struggle. But the thing is that there's no way we can go ahead and resolve get rid of suffering and pain and
Mhm.
hardship. There's other hardships, that comes from it. There's lots of things that we have comforts of living, but from it there are a lot of um, other negative results from it. What I find really crazy that we do in the modern era. You look at it,
What's that?
uh, you get the highest paid money, right, for sitting around, for desk jobs. You get paid the most, okay, and then you sign up in a uh, for a gym membership, and you pay out money, right, so that you can go and burn calories. It I mean, when you look at that, it's absurd. It's absurd. The entire idea of energy, right? Part of the definition, idea of energy, is that it is something that uh, allows us to do work, to create movement, to create work, right? To do work, right? So we create an environment where we require no energy to do work. Actually, we expend world's energy, the earth's energy, right? But least amount of human energy we put into. But then we don't exert human energy, then we get into bad health, we gain weight and our health declines. So then we pay extra money so that we can go ahead and burn greater earthly resources and energy. So we can just waste away our calories, our energy. It is
Yes.
highly, highly inefficient, right? You wouldn't see loggers or farmers or people like that joining in a gym membership. do, you, do you know what I mean? I mean,
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, uh, this brings us to the next part of the article I wanted to highlight.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and it reminds me of something I saw recently, which I'll share. But let me read the quote
okay.
first from the article. Freedom is the ultimate aim and aspiration of human existence, consciously and unconsciously. It is not the juvenile sense of freedom to do whatever we want that is not true freedom, as that is not true freedom. It is an illusion of delusional minds, as the reality is quite the contrary. Although we may do whatever we want, we are not free from its consequences. Therefore, the real human desire is to be free from consequences, to escape pain and suffering. And so I saw last night. I saw a movie. I don't know if you've seen it, sir. It's called Father Stew with Mark Wahlberg, and it's about a basically a just degenerate that became a priest. He found God,
Okay.
and he ultimately he as he was going through the priesthood seminary, he developed this condition that was very similar to Lou Gehrig's disease, and he started
Mhm.
wasting away. And it was basically the movie ultimately is about his suffering, and he says at the end that his suffering was a gift from God because it brought him closer to Christ. And he viewed his suffering at first. Of course, he's going why, but then he came to realize that his suffering was actually a gift, and it allowed him to just not only get closer to God but get closer to others. It's like he became a very popular priest and leader for his congregation. So this reminds me of that. It's like our life is going to be full of suffering, yet we want to get away from suffering. We want to eliminate it. We believe that somehow a life free of suffering is a good life. It's going to be a productive life. And what you're saying here in your quote is that it's actually the contrary. So could you
Yeah,
comment on
yeah,
that, sir?
yeah. I I mean this is another big subject. But it is a delusional thinking. It's just crazy thinking to think that you can rid of suffering. Um, you know, you can't. You ask any person, whether they are wealthy, they have money, they have all the things they desire, you know, anyone, they cannot tell you that they're completely, they're utterly happy. Um, they might be perfectly fine, and then die of cancer, or get cancer, or fight with a disease, or somebody that they love, their wife or their husband or children, they might die. Tragedy will strike. The entire thing is that it's not only about individual suffering; it's about our collective suffrage that we will endure, because we are related, and we are in a relationship with not only ourselves but many people. So we will suffer directly or indirectly. Um, so the question, so the idea, it should not be to rid of suffering. Um, and um, I think whenever, if you look at history too, any any uh, group, or any government, any authority whose aim is to go ahead and promise that type of relieving of suffering, creating some type of utopia through governmental control, have all failed. They have all failed. Um, so, uh, the idea of utopia, idea of ridding suffering, is can't be done. Now, um, I'm not God to say that we need suffering, but it is, for human condition. It is our human condition. It's not something that we can even discuss one or the other. What it is, that how it makes us better, is that we by finding ways uh, to overcome our challenges that confronts us, to to deal and overcome the pain, the hardship, and the suffering. It is through that we become more resilient, more tenacious, more strong, more convicted. Um, if we have doubts, and doubts to me are not a bad thing. It's a barometer. It's a way of testing to see whether am I really capable? Am I really, my convictions really strong? Um, so not to have a doubt and think that you can absolutely do it and succeed, that's a problem. That there should be some level of doubt. So that
Mhm.
level of doubt should then say, if being self-aware, right? This is one. So those negative things, you're trying to suppress it, get rid of it, not deal with it. Well, see, then uh, you've just made them um, lose their purpose, right? They become ineffectual. They become, you've just made them inert. Okay. Um, but it doesn't mean those things go away,
Mhm.
right? So those moments are things that you have to use to have and use the thing that we human beings are gifted with, and that's self-awareness. What is the purpose for self-awareness? It's our ability to look at ourselves outside of ourselves, be aware we're doing these things, good and bad, whatever it is, reflect on them, and to be able to change ourselves in order to adjust. And that is how we then alter and change our course, our future. That self-awareness is still, a debate amongst all scholars and scientists. Why do we have it? We have that. Only human beings have that. We're the only ones who are self-aware. Um, so, uh, you know, the issue today is exactly that. They don't want to work through it. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to confront it. You know, they they're easily, so their course, easily they come to some kind of uh, a block or some kind of a, you know whatever, they easily then deterred, and they'll just find another way, and they'll just keep on uh, living their life avoiding these type of conflicts or whatever. But every time they do it, they're going to run into something.
Yeah,
So
they're trying to choose the path of least resistance, but it makes for where circumstances are always dictating what you do as opposed to you willing whatever it is you want, the path that you want, instead of the
yeah,
path that's chosen for them through circumstance.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and that's the statement, right? The what is uh, following the path of least resistance is what makes rivers and men crooked. You know, that's what makes them crooked, trying to find easy ways. But that has been our maxim. Um, in the martial art, in Taoism, the idea of Tao is a Do in Chinese, Do in Korean, and Japanese, and that is a character of a country road, not a paved road, but a country road, and that is a symbol of life. That it is not a straight paved road. It is not the yellow brick road, paved in gold. It is a crooked, you know, uh, with ditches, with rocks, with twists and turns. That's life, right? So that's what happens when we come to the. Let's say if you were coming to and you see one path, one road paved in gold, and another one that's paved in rocks and ditches, and it's all crooked. Which one would you take, right? You would take the paved road, right? But the paved road does nothing for you. Does nothing for you. It's nice and straight. It's nice and flat, right? You gain no benefit. Maybe you get to the destination faster, but you don't even know where it's heading. You don't know where the end is. You just see the road, right? But when you take the country road, when you take the up and down and the twists and turns, that's what makes you by going up and down, by avoiding the ditches and falling into them and getting up and etc. It fortifies your body. It makes you think. It makes you problem solve. It makes your body stronger. We don't have to go to gym and just burn and waste calories. You put it to good use.
Well, it also gives you the freedom to go where the roads don't. It's if you only look for paved roads, you're very limited to what you can see and experience.
Absolutely right. That's right. You're right. So there are a few. There are a few, yes, that do take that and face the challenges. So we're talking generalities here, right?
Hmm.
So a lot of people do. And those people are the ones, Hajima, Hajima, those people are the ones who uh, do extraordinary things, you know. So so this is the issue. I'm not complaining about also, the other thing is these kind of people, they're always complaining, because they're blaming, so they're complaining. If you said it was your fault, you're not going to complain about you. So um, is why even is this discussion, why are we even having this discussion, right? It's because, and you also and me, we're trying to help people. We're trying to teach or help people. We're trying to better people, right? So uh, you know if you just leave it the way it is, leave it Machiavellian or follow evolution, then the survival of the fittest. It's a survival of the fittest. So let the strongest survive, right? So if you where we are is we are not uh, we are focused and caring about the individual. We want each individual to thrive and do well, right? So if that person is weak, if that person is sheep, if that person is not a leader, then forget it. Let them be slave. Let them do the grunt work. Let them, what do you care? Why bother them, right? And many people do, and they don't want to be bothered, right? But my whole life has been dedicated to bettering people, to making the weak stronger, to making, everyone a leader, be independent, the idea of self-governance, uh, and the idea of self-accountability, all these things. So I'm always thinking, about, you know, how I can better do that. And in doing that, I have to also identify their problems,
Hmm.
right? Societal that the you know problems due to society, of course, you know, uh, through their from peers, from parenting. That's why when we first discussed, our podcast, parenting and teaching was a huge issue. Now we're talking about the product of the parent and teaching, what we're dealing with today, you know, and how the individual should be, right? Um, Remember also in any kind of um, governmental or body controlling the masses or controlling any small group that wants control over the masses, uh, your goal is not to to make them independent, make them independently strong. You want them to be more sheep and follow, and suppress them with fear, and entice them with promises of happiness, and reducing of suffering. It's very simple, right? And you know, the, so as a martial artist and as a warrior art, as a harang, right? The only stories you hear of the harang or any warriorship is ideas of dying, ideas of self-sacrifice, idea of, you know, facing death, pain, suffering, and death, right? Um, so, so we're discussing these things, and I see a huge issue because what I'm saying is that there's a majority. It's increased now. It's not as a society. When I look to the students, it hasn't improved on the individual basis.
And like you say, sir, like you said about the example of the sword, it's like can't be too hard, can't be too soft. Um, you know, you help to you help to identify your students' weaknesses, and sometimes a very strong student can come in physically strong, but their weakness is that they lack humility, and you you know doing the opposite. Someone may be physically strong, but they're weak in other areas. And if we don't have people that are like you doing that, those are the leaders. Those are the people that can run amok and get high on power and abuse the, the others who don't don't have that resiliency. So like it goes both ways, where you've mentored people who were physically weak, but also you've mentored people who were physically strong, but then needed maturity to make sure their lack of maturity didn't hurt others.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, sir, there's a so I wanted to go into the next part of your article, which actually deals with maturity. Um, you say that the maturity of human beings come to fruition when they are able to understand that everything has a price, that in fact nothing is free. Can you dive deeper into that and explain?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the whole idea. When I mean, kids do whatever they do, uh, uh, because they don't have to pay for it. They'll break everything. They'll do. because they're not paying for it. Um, so what it seems like that there is that sense of immaturity with people these days. Is it's almost like they want to do everything, but they don't want to pay for it. So it's like as adults, that's a terrible thing, right? Adults cannot behave that way. Um, so they become more entitled. So they're going shopping. They want to go to a market or go to a department store and get everything they want, and then they want somebody else to pay. Um, how is that possible? That's not possible. Um, and then they point fingers and blame at the people who have, right? Um, and not thinking about what kind of work, what kind of sacrifices they made in order to get to their position. And then we create our society is tremendously at fault because now we're creating more reasons to blame, uh, you know, the everything except taking accountability, except realizing that you got to pay a price, right? Somebody else pays. So what is it now? I mean, kids, adolescents, everybody, we always doubt, right? We doubt. Uh, I'm too short. I'm too tall. I'm too skinny. I'm too fat. I'm too yellow. You know, the person's white. I'm black. What's wrong with my color? Why is my nose so big? Why is it so small? It, we and then you tack on now, right? Um, or and then uh, you're bringing back all these things where you're saying that none of it is your fault. It's what you're born as. You're born white or you're black. That's what matter is. If you also about our gender. So now we're questioning. Oh, I'm not feeling all comfortable. I'm not feeling all good. So you know what? Maybe I'm a woman. Maybe I'm a girl, right? And girls in the average, I can choose. Okay, maybe I'm a guy. Maybe that's the issue. So it's like, so that whole thing of not accepting the price, it means not understanding consequences, not understanding that what fundamentally that means is not only everything has a price, but if you want to get it, then you got to pay the price. See, so that's the understanding. But they don't want to pay the price. Well, how do you, if something is $100, you can't afford it, then what do you got to do, right? You can't cry and whine about it. You got to go make $100 to go ahead and so you can get it. So you got to go work. When I was 9 years old, my first job at 9 was in doing newspaper routes. See, you guys will have no idea what that is, but at that time, right, they used to recruit young kids. I was only 10 years old, all right? And it was the Los Angeles Times, Orange County Times, or something like that, right? Register or something. And you every day you got to do the routes and deliver a newspaper. I worked for a month, and I think and Sunday was huge, right? Sunday's like big, and I even made my own wagon so I could pull the darn thing, but it was so heavy it was hard to pull. So I slaved away for a month and got money. It was like, I don't know, $100. You know, that's a lot of money back then too. Okay, this is how many years it is. I don't want to talk about it. It was over 45, almost 50 years later ago. So, um, you know, and what did I do with that money? I first thing I did, I bought my mother flowers. Right, I bought flowers, and I bought the flowers. I ding dong, I pushed the doorbell of my own house. My mom opened. I had the flowers hiding behind me. She opened the door and went, surprise, right? And I thought my mom would be very happy. And she got very upset. She got very upset that I bought her flowers, that I wasted my money for her. I wasted my money, on buying such frivolous things when I could have put it to some other better use. Of course, she probably appreciated, but see, that was the kind of parents I had, right? So I never went ahead, and bought my mom flowers ever, right? Uh, but I didn't also take that and say, oh, that's why, my mother never appreciated me. She didn't love me. She never thought, no, I understood. I understood it. Okay. Coming from Korea, doing right out of the Korean War, okay, in the 70s, and coming to the United States, I completely understand our work ethic and how we spend money is completely different. I went ahead, right? I couldn't talk to my father. I talked to my mom. I wanted a bike at that time. BMX uh, bikes were very popular, right? They do jumps and tricks and everything, right? All kinds of cool bikes, very super light with all kinds of special rims and alloy wheels and all this stuff, right? So I wanted one of these, right? So what did what did I do? I couldn't ask my father. I couldn't ask my father. You know, I asked my mom. Mom, you think I could go ahead and maybe get a bike? Would Dad get a bike for me? Can you ask Dad? And so my mom asked. This is like right around that age, right? 10, whatever. So she did that. And so what did one day I got a gift. What did my dad give me? He got me a Schwinn or Rampar, or I can't remember. It's a Rampar. Hard, and it was one of those cheaper ones, right? And it was not the super light ones, right? So you're jumping, doing tricks on it. It has to be light. Everything's made to make it light. This was heavy. It was super heavy. And we're on the neighborhood, we're doing jumps and everything, right? So it was hard for me to jump. Okay. But what happened? What happened was I got to jump well because I had to learn how to get this thing to take off. All right. So what happened? One day, I got this bike and it's right in my front yard. We're kind of in a closed community, and I run in to get some water. And I come out, the bike is gone. Bike is gone. Oh my gosh. I thought
Mm.
that was the end. It was the end.
It wasn't heavy enough not to be stolen.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it was the end. It was the end. Okay. Um, and I was so deathly afraid to tell it to my, how can I tell him? And so I got enough courage to go and tell him what happened, and what could they say? Right. Because I just ran in. It was like 2 minutes, literally. So somebody was watching, right? Now I can go ahead and kind of speculate and blame all kinds of things, right? Because I was the only Asian kid in that whole all of that city, pretty much, right? Which is now Garden Grove, and Garden Grove is now or has become the Orange County Koreatown. There's more. All the Koreans moved there, but when I was there were hardly any. So somebody maybe was out for me. I could blame all that kinds of scenario. But anyway, and I got another story about that. If you don't want to talk about racism, um, and uh, so my father found out. I told him, and he got me a bike, another one. And that I locked that thing up every second. Every what I didn't let it alone. I locked it up all the time. But that bike was a little bit better. That bike was a little bit lighter, and it was a little bit better. and I was outriding everybody. You see?
Now they want your bike. They don't want the BMX anymore.
Exactly. I mean, that's how it worked. Do you understand? So that thing that I was not happy about, I wasn't happy about it. The thing that was a handicap for me, I worked it through, and by doing it, it made me stronger and better. Right? So I give you one more example. Uh, this is in the same city, Garden Grove. I was in elementary school, right? I just moved there, um, and was in there a year and a half. Could barely speak English, right? Could barely speak, um, and we had a spelling bee, okay? And it was a big thing. It was at night, you know, all the parents, the whole family, community all came, right? It was a grand event, right? Uh, fifth grade. And guess who won? Huh? Me. The only Asian kid, the only Asian kid in the entire school, maybe the entire city, won. All right. So do you know what happened next year? They didn't have it in the evening. It wasn't a big function anymore. You know what they did? They had the spelling bee during lunchtime. They held it during lunchtime, right? And now I was in sixth grade, all right? I was in sixth grade. No parents came, nobody. We did it during lunchtime. And guess who won? It was between me, and the other, a girl, Mexican, Hispanic girl, and an Asian boy, me. We tied for first place. You know how the spelling bee, we kept on going, and none of, so we tied, right? Probably after I left that school, they probably canceled spelling bee, period.
It was too traumatic for the losers.
But do you see what I'm saying to you? I mean, I'm only a short story I'm giving you, right? My whole life was confronted with those kind of challenges, right? And although my size too in Korea was, I'm average. I'm not tall or short. I'm average. But when I came to the United States, I'm looking up at everybody, right? My stories about playing football, in wrestling, all of that, right? In high school, I was all up against odds. I fought all the time against always bigger people. And so, I truly understand. I know this idea that you have to, in order for you to be strong, you have to be tested, all right? You have to be tested. And that is what makes you strong, gives you the resilience, gives you the fortitude. And that is what preps you to succeed. The thing that we have to prep people, how we have to, prepare them, is to prepare them to deal with struggle, with criticism, with things that they don't like. But that's not what we're doing. And what I'm telling you, that's the result. So I'm having these adults who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s crying, and being doubtful and being wishy-washy, and one day they're gung-ho, another day is like, oh, I don't know. I mean, like, you want to be able to like slap sense into them because they completely lost it, right? And then of course you tell them, you shouldn't look for sympathy, right? And of course, what do they say? And this is always the case, right? They go ahead and tell you all these things, and they say, "Oh, then you sympathize?" Like, "Oh, okay, oh, I feel sorry for you, whatever," right? Which you should never say, and I never do. But when you do, they'll go, "No, no, no, I don't want any sympathy. I don't want sympathy. Then, you know, what do you want, right?" Um, but what's even more interesting, right, is is when they do this to me, because they understand where I stand. They know who I am. They know what I do. They're my people. They know. They know I don't tolerate these things, but they'll do it anyway. It's like it's almost uncontrollable. Do you understand? It's just
Yes, sir.
they know. Like the guy that texted me late at night, right? I mean, that's when you know they lost it. They lost it. They lost it, right? Why would you do that? 11, it's suicide, And but you have to write it and go, you like, right? You push send, like, no, I'm gonna, okay, boom, and send it. Once you send it, it's done, right? It's like, well, how do they do that? And then I told you about the woman, about the flip fall, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
last time.
yeah, so they had to shoot on Sunday. So on Saturday, I went and and they're all talking, and she's there, you know, but I can see it just her face is blank, right? Blank. There's no life in her. She's gone, you know. She's already given up, right? So um, after the first class, we said, okay, you had some time. So I said, go practice, get the crash mat and practice the fall. She said, yes, sir. And she got up, but she looked, just unresponsive. So I said, so, uh, it looks like to me you're done. So she stopped. Looks like to me, I said, you look like you're done. And she stopped and she said, and she goes, she thought a little bit for like a second and said, yeah, I'm done. I said, what do you mean you're done? I gave her a way out. I gave her a way out. I know what she meant. I gave her a way out because this, it's constantly wishy-washy. Huh? Uh, so it says, and she said, oh, I can't do this anymore. So I said, oh, okay, get out, leave. So she stomped out. Okay. Then I guess the instructor there, he texted her whatever, and she decided to come back. So about 4 hours later, or I'm leaving, and she was out there in the front, and she came back. I mean, normally I don't accept that. You know, I don't accept that. But I gave her another chance. But it's like it's the craziness, right? They decided, they did it, they did whatever, they knew what they're getting to supposedly, uh, uh, but then you know they 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 just give up. They give up on themselves. They choose that easier way. So they constantly the thinking is, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? I don't want to deal with it anymore. What is it she's dealing with? What is it she's dealing with? What is it she can't deal with? Do anymore? What is it she can't do anymore? Her internal self, her fear overcoming, you know, not doing this right, not doing that right. She can't do this. She's afraid of this. She's afraid of that, right? But she's got to get the nerves, the strength to overcome it. Every little thing is a challenge, right? She's completely out of her comfort zone. Okay, um, but that's what you need. You know, I don't ever think that every situation that I've been in, all that see that question doesn't come to mind. You know what I mean? When I'm challenged with, when I got to do something that is expecting a lot from me. When I had to do the blind sword cut, when I had to jump over 7 people, when I had to go ahead and do a board break, when I did the spokes, when I did all kinds of crazy things. I don't think about, you know, I'm excited to do it. I don't think about, you know, what if I didn't do it? What if I don't do it? Right? Uh, yeah. And so how do you change that? And you can't. That's so hard. And this is what I say, people don't change. Ultimately, they don't change. They don't change. So what she or they, they're always constantly looking for, both there's examples I gave or any individual like that. They're always looking for the escape, the opportunity to get out, to quit. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Is
Always, right? Always. And so, as a warrior mentality, or as the martial artist, or as an individual who's a leader, who's going to push through, it has to be the idea to burn all ships. You know, you know the saying,
yes,
burn
sir.
all the ships, right? Burn all the ships. What does that mean? You just landed in enemy territory, right? You're fighting. You're against odds. You're on their turf. You're fighting and you're losing the battle. So the general says, the commander says, burn the ships. What? What do you mean burn the ships? What is he meaning? There's no retreat. There are several battles that's occurred this way. This one in particular I'm talking about is a famous Chinese battle, and they were going to lose, outnumbered. So his solution is burn the ships. So that's where the saying comes from. There's no way home, no retreat. So what did they do? They fought. And what did they do? They won. And then they continued their campaign, won again and again. You see, that is a special mind. And that is the thing that Harangdo, that through martial training, that we're trying to teach common folks. So it's like if you've seen the Seven Samurai, you know movies like that, uh you're taking farmers who never picked up a weapon in their life, and teaching them how to fight and win, facing death, you know right? uh but but in the story, they win because because that's their home. That's all they have, right? So they're fighting. They have no way home. That is their home. There is no retreat, or it's death. So it's got to have that kind of conviction. And every challenge, every moment of hardship and suffering is testing you to see how much do you really want it. Is this really what you want? And of course, in these people's minds, it's not. So when that question comes over and over and over again, sooner or later, they surrender to it. And they're perfectly fine. And they're perfectly fine because they go back to who they were. And they say, "Oh, you know, I was never a wolf. I was always a sheep. I knew I was a sheep." So they're comfortable with that. And they reject everything else and they blame, you know. Huh? Whose crazy idea was it to make me dress in a wolf clothing and try to act like a wolf when I knew I was a sheep?
Yes, sir. Well, there's a one more thing I wanted to highlight here in your article, and it speaks to the concept of accountability, responsibility. You say that the mission of Harangdo is to empower our students by overcoming and liberating them from their fears, so that they may see and think clearly and realize and be humbled by the truth that they are responsible and accountable for everything they choose to do in their lives, and each one of them will have to answer for them. So, I mean, whether somebody chooses to do something or not to do, whether they choose to face their struggle, the fear, or they choose to cower, they're the ones responsible. You know, and you know, and that's there's always and going off of something you said earlier, there's always a price to pay. If you do nothing, there's a price to pay. If you act, there's a price to pay. There's a consequence, and that ultimately, the only person responsible is us. Can you elaborate on that, sir?
Yeah, yeah. Um, you know, uh, whether you're an atheist, or or you're a believer in Christ, and understand his teachings. Um, you know, you are responsible for your choices and decisions. And for Christians, for sure, it's done in the second coming, and we'll all be judged. God will judge us. Or any religion you believe in, God will be the final judge, who's all seeing, all knowing, and all powerful. So he will judge you on what you do. Um, but if you don't believe in God, it still doesn't matter, because uh, by the physical laws, of cause and effect, what you do or don't do are going to create consequences that you have, that it is beyond your control. And not only that, the thing is that your conscience, your subconscious, yourself, you will not forget. So you will have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. And whatever you buried, you suppressed, it will come back, and you will have to deal with that. And surely, if your repetition of your behavior shows cowardice, um, lying or cheating, or doing the underachieving, and you are not truthful to yourself, you're going to have to live with that, and that surely cannot bring about joy and happiness and fulfillment. Um, so you will pay. You will pay one way or the other, right? But the problem with all this is that anybody who's doing the act that is a negative act, or that's going to create, future consequences that will impact them badly, and will bring about greater suffering. The problem is, while they're doing it, they don't care, and they're not wise enough to know what's going to happen in the future. So who cares? So they'll do it. And that's the unfortunate reality of our life always, isn't it? You know, hindsight is 2020. We can't see ahead. We don't know. We cannot predict the future. Whatever we think is doing what it's best for us right now, it oftentimes is wrong. And this is why I say, right? That's why it's said there. One of the most important things before one is able to make proper choices and think clearly is to first get rid of fear. You have to get rid of fear. Under fear, under pressure, under duress, under stress, under any uh, ill, negative feelings, right? You cannot make proper decisions. And so this is the same thing I explained about the female student I had, right? She shouldn't have said that in that moment, okay? But she couldn't help it, because her emotions were overwhelming her, right? So that's what she was feeling, not really what she wants to do, but she felt the pressure, and she let it overcome the fear, right? Look at how crazy the fear is, the insanity of this fear. Think about it. She knows how to do it over and over again. She's done it. She's been thrown from higher elevations, doing the shoulder throws, higher elevation, bigger falls. Know how to do it. Are you ready? Are you ready? And then she goes, and right in you know, are you ready? She says, yes, sir, I'm ready. And then is thrown, and right as she takes off, she abandons herself. literally abandons. I'm sure she can't, probably won't remember. She can't remember anything. For a second, there's a blackout. I jokingly say, you know, she traveled to a different dimension. She does dimension travel because that's literally what's happening. She's gone. Now think about this rationally. Rationally, by doing that, you know, she could have broken her neck. See, that it's not rational. So she would rather risk breaking her neck, okay, by saying yes, I says I'm ready, and abandoning herself in midair, mid act, and risk breaking her neck, than to say, you know what, I said I'm ready. I said I'm going to do this, so I'm going to do it. How bad can her, and push off with her feet and take the leap, right? The leap of faith, right? It's right in the middle of it, right? Right, you leap up, and then boom, you drop. I mean, it's just, see, so that's the first part. So that's what Hwarangdo, right, martial art does all the time, right? That is what it's teaching them to overcome their fear. You know, I give you the other student too. He's the instructor, right? He had the same issue. He had the same issue. You know what kind of dramatic act that I had to perform in order to make him do the fall? Uh, I was a drama queen. I could have won the Academy, the Oscars, right? Right? I threw him. I said, okay, forget it. Right? I'm leaving. I can't believe this. Right? Because he said, I'm not doing this. And then his logic was, I've never done this before. No kidding, Sherlock. I know. I've never done it before is not the excuse. Not do it. You're taught how to do it. You know how to do it. You're capable of doing it. We have mats stacked this high. Right? I'm not doing it. So I said, what? So I, I yelled. I said, okay, forget it. I can't deal with this type of students or whatever it is. I'm leaving. I'm going back to America. I'm flying back to America. I'm leaving. I walked out. As I walking out, I said, sir, whatever, right? And finally, we got him to do it. Okay? So a few years later, I think this was this year or maybe last year. I think it was this year. No, it was last year before we went off on vacation. I was at the class there, and I think they're getting ready for demo. We did a demo practice. I tried to help them, and they're doing nutball practice. I put a little bench about a couple of feet high, and they're doing the dive roll over the bench. So I put the bench away, and I went up in front, and I bent down. You know, I stood up and bent down halfway, and I told them to dive roll over me. Right? So guess what he did? He ran, and he's like, oh, he's getting all psyched. And he ran, and he hits me. So I'm like, oh, really? It's like, he didn't change. He hasn't changed. Right? And then I'm about to dismiss them, and I'm thinking in my mind, you know what? Because they're going off on vacation, I'm not going to see them. Whatever. This is a horrible, horrible way to go. Okay, he will not feel good about himself. So I said, so I sacrificed myself again, and I said, you want to try again? Okay, and I thought maybe he'd say no. He said, oh yes, sir. Okay, so I bent over, and he's getting all psyched, and he runs, and he now flings himself. Right, he's not even worrying about the falling. He just flings himself over, and he goes. He's supposed to touch hand and tuck and roll, right? He just went flap on his back, boom, which nothing happened, right? But he could have landed, say more soft. But he did it, right? And he felt great. And after he came back from the vacation, we had the opportunity to talk, and I sat him down and I explained to him. I said, do you know what the issue is? Do you know what the issue is? And this is the understanding you have to have. See, you were concerned of your own self-preservation more than caring for hurting another person. See, your fear of not wanting to hurt yourself, you ran me over and hurt me. See, the desire to save themselves, right, is what causes the the immoral, amoral, ill actions, negative consequences to other people, whether intentional or not, caring or not caring. That fear of wanting to preserve themselves, to not harm themselves, harms other people. You see? So when he chose that second time, what did he do? What did he do? He said, there's no way I'm going to go ahead and touch him or hurt him. I'm going to sacrifice myself. So I'm just going to throw myself high as I can into the air. So we both lived. Do you understand? We both lived. He was okay. I was okay. That is the biggest lesson. That's what it is. See, if you, the word, the idea, I want to help people. I want to, I care about other people. None of those words mean anything until you get to that point. Until you get to that point where you're called to do it, right? I asked the woman, she said she has a dog now. So I said, you'd be the dog. You be the person, you see a dog, in the traffic, and you see the dog, you ran into the street, and it's going to be run over, and you go, oh, and the car runs him over. Would you, or would you go and run after the dog and risk yourself getting run over and save the dog? And of course, she says, yes, I would run and chase after the dog. That's questionable. That's questionable. That's questionable. Surely I'm not going to test that, uh, but if we'd have to do the same thing with me, same thing, right? Ducking down and having her do it, she'd run me over more than once, right? Then you see, then you are in our perspective, you are then a leader. That's a leader. That's a leader. Leader at the end of the day is about sacrifice. So I ended the article by saying that, right?
Yes,
By
sir.
saying that our job is to suffer, because we can't avoid it. We suffer through life. We go to face the hardships. We go through all that stuff. And for what? For what? So we can help another person. That's it. And the idea for us too, it comes to the martial art and Hwarangdo and all of us. It's the idea of striving for perfection, knowing we can never attain it. It's the idea of striving to be pure. It's the idea of being righteous. Doing your best all the time, right? Striving for perfection, knowing you can't achieve it. See, it's delusional. It's wrong, and this is why I say it's the difference between being of godhood and godliness, right? Thinking that we can be God and being delusional that we can be perfect, and we can actually be the best, but uh, rather than knowing there's no way we can ever be perfect, but it's the struggle that we endure is the struggle of trying to be perfect, trying to be pure, trying to be at our best, right? That should be the struggle. And the more you struggle to do that, the more you try to do that, the more you're going to struggle. Because the less satisfied you are, you're not satisfied. You're never satisfied. If you're satisfied, you're not going to push forward. If I'm satisfied with what I did right now, hey, this is why I mentioned before the idea of maximizing human potential. What's human potential? What is the potential? It's up to the person. If it's up to you, you could always say, hey, you know what? You could stop at any time, say, hey, I reached my potential. Right? You could stop at any time and say, I've reached my potential. Right? The idea of striving to maximize our human potential has no end. It is the belief that we have a lot of potential. Right? And if you self-regulate that potential and you could stop at any time, then that's not potential.
Well, man, I think to sum things up, our potential is what we define it is, and oftentimes the more we work to develop ourselves, the higher our potential becomes. It's like potential what we can do in the present, in the moment, is based on our current strength and courage and our weaknesses. But then as we work on those things, get stronger, work on our weaknesses, our potential also increases. So
Absolutely.
it's like now what we thought was impossible for us all of a sudden becomes possible.
That's right.
And you almost look back and start going like, how did I ever think I could never do that? Like now I
That's
can
right.
do it easily, but there was a point where you're like, no way I can ever do that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And that's what's most upsetting, right? Is that these people have worked so many years to get to that potential where they can do more, but they can't make that leap of faith. So rather, they'll drop everything for the whatever how many years, and they'll just drop it all and just go back to where they first started. See, tell me if that's not insanity,
Yes.
right? But that's the desire. That's the desire for comfort. You in that and fear, and this is why I say that is a tool of the devil. It is used for us to self-destruct, self-destroy ourselves.
But also when you closed off your article, you said, we go to the struggle to better ourselves. Not for ourselves necessarily. It's when we realize it's for others. And and I think that your student who was jumping over you, it's like when he became selfless is actually when he was able to accomplish the feat. When he was thinking selfishly about himself
That's right.
is actually when he actually was doing a disservice to others.
That's right.
And
That,
and so I think the message comes home there is like when we take the kind of like the focus off of ourselves,
that's right.
our potential increases, what we can do
That's
increases.
right. That's right. And that that at the very end, right, is what defines actually, good leaders and bad leaders,
Mm,
right? Leaders who justifies the end, the means of their own ambitions, achieving their own ambitions, or the ones who sacrificed themselves for the well-being of others, right? And what we're talking about, what we need also more in the world are good leaders.
mhm.
But see, good leaders uh, uh, are timid, quiet, shy, humble, right? Passive. This is the issue. So ultimately, that's what I'm trying to do. Is more good people need to stand up and be assertive and take charge and lead and not It's easy for people who are with evil intentions, right, to take charge, lead, and be sociopathic and narcissistic and just do, because it requires action, not just thought. Everything requires action. So we need more of those good leaders. So the quote, there's a quote, right, that I put from Mills, but that is the foundation of that statement that's popular, right? Which is what the evil of the world is when good men do nothing, right? Is when good men do nothing, and that's the problem,
Yes, sir.
right? How do you make good people strong, assertive, dangerous leaders
In a good way.
in a good way?
Well, sir, that's all the time we have. But I appreciate the discussion. Appreciate your insight, sir. Again, how will people be able to read this article, sir?
Well, first of all, it's on our warangdut.org. So if you go to warangdut.org, it's there. And also, it's going to be sent out on the PDF newsletter, and it will be published in the this is the May, June, um, in the June, I think, in the June issue. No. This is June right now. Either June this month or July issue of Budo International.
Great. Awesome, sir. Well, thank you so much for today's session, sir, and we'll see everybody next time.
Very good. Thank you,
Sounds good.
Ferny. Hora.